Anne here, and this is More Than a Love Interest, the show where we talk about the arcs of female characters in film. Today, we are wrapping up this series with the current final princess, Raya. We'll get into her character flaws, her arc over the movie, and how she fits into Disney princess canon. Let's get started.
All right, Captain Boone. Next stop, Spy.
As usual, I like to kick these videos off with refuting complaints people have about the princess as a person. And as was the case with the last couple of these, there hasn't been a lot of time since release for people to get cranky about the leading lady, so I'm gonna have to extrapolate a bit from what I've already seen about her specifically, and what folks say about princesses in general.
We're both warrior women who despise uncomfortable formal wear.
I fully expect the usual sort to come out and complain that she is annoying or adorable or whatever. For the first, as I've said all along this series, finding a Disney princess annoying is just a symptom of you having to watch it when you were too old for the relatively one-note characters that exist in movies for younger children.
Nothing. I'm just not used to seeing dragons.
Watch something for older kids or even adults. It's not Raya's fault if you aged out.
I'm a good swimmer, is basically what I'm.
Okay, we need to keep going.
If you think she's adorable at the start, my response is that she is a child or alone in a dystopia with no one to talk to.
Hello? Oh!
That's the Watsonian reason, but let's not forget the more accurate Doylist reason. She is this way because Disney thinks that's the only way for ladies to be relatable.
Yeah, I might be a little bit of a dragon nerd.
And I agree that it's getting old, but it's not something I would point to this movie specifically as doing badly. We'll come back to that. If anything, she is less adorable than her predecessors and instead behaves fairly realistically.
Hey there, Princess Undercut.
The next complaint has to do with the dystopian setting. Raya is too jaded and harsh, or Raya's too nice and naive. I've already seen Raya blamed for all the bad stuff that happens in this movie. I am disappointed, but not surprised, even though Raya is clearly correct about most of the situations they face.
We're a world of orphans because people couldn't stop fighting over a gem.
Because let's be real, the apocalypse is not her fault, and kind of not Namari's either. Yeah, she tricked Raya, who fell for it.
From one dragon nerd to another.
But it's obvious all the adults had the same idea, and there's no way this dinner was going to end differently.
A play for the gem.
No! Spine should have the gem!
Not if we get to it first!
Our blades say different.
Generally speaking, in a story for children, the person taking advantage of another person's trust should be the one at fault, not the person who trusted. It's fine for a morally gray story for grown-ups to question one's naivete, but we want kids to trust adults, so even without this addition, I think it is unreasonable to paint Raya as in the wrong for trusting Namari.
Come with me, Dupla. I want to show you something.
Especially given that the whole movie resolves when Raya is willing to trust others, and specifically Namari, to save the world.
Then let me take the first step.
So this can't be a flaw of hers at the start.
It's the last bit of dragon magic left in the whole world.
Finally, the hottest take I've seen so far has been that Raya is a Mary Sue. This is, of course, because people apply that condemnation liberally to any female character who does enough for them to notice her at all.
The what she's done?
We'll never trust her!
So I'm hesitant to engage with it and lend it validity, but I will say that Raya is not a Mary Sue because she was not dropped into an existing story where everyone loves her and things go well. She kicks off the story through her own agency, and it's a pretty miserable experience for her, actually. The other characters do join up with her quickly, but I'd say that's more because of Sisu than because of Raya.
What is happening?
My friend's a really strong swimmer.
She loves my face.
He seems lonely.
No!
Even before they know she's a dragon.
When were you gonna tell us she was Sisu?
The easy Watsonian explanation for this is that humans are influenced by the presence of a dragon, even if not everyone changes their behavior as a result. And from a Doylist perspective, then Sisu is much more likely a Mary Sue than Raya is, at least for the world tour part of the story.
Please, let me help you.
But that's fine for the magical sidekick to be. My point is that anything Raya is shown to know how to do has a reasonable explanation behind it. And the friends she makes along the way are generally charmed by Sisu first, not because they are impressed by Raya particularly. Raya is a flawed character who goes through a significant arc and who has agency in the way events transpire, so calling her a Mary Sue is idiotic, as is usually the case when that name is used. Overall, I think Raya is reflective of the trends in movies at the time, as are all princesses. And like all of them, she also brings some uniqueness to the table to set her apart from both the princesses and many of her contemporary female characters.
Sisu, I am done trying. Kumandra is a fairy tale.
The only real complaint I would put forward, but which I have not seen, is that this isn't a musical like all the others.
Betcha on land, they understand, bet they don't reprimand their daughters. Now I see that if I were truly to be myself, a place I know where I cannot go, where I long to be. I want so much more than they've got planned.
It's disappointing not to hear Kelly Marie Tran's lovely voice, or be allowed such an important window into the interiority of the character. That makes it much more of an uphill battle for her to be as memorable as the other ones, which is a shame because she is such an exciting version of a princess.
It's not about her magic, it's about trust.
The most significant new idea introduced here is that Raya is wrong at the start of the movie and has to change her ways by the end. The other ladies all have arcs, of course, but if anyone is wrong about what they're doing, it's not them. It's the villain or a parent or whatever. Raya learning to change her outlook is a wonderful direction for the princess movies to go. I hope they continue to explore that idea. So let's dive into just how that arc works for her.
Look, my father blindly trusted people, and now he's stoned.
Next, let's talk about how Raya grows and changes because of the events of the movie. It's a bit unusual in how it's paced across the structure of the film,
But I want to help.
I know, and you will.
but she still has a complete arc, and how she self-actualizes is pretty important for how the whole story resolves. Let's get into it. The first step on the journey has the heroine separate from the feminine. In Raya's case, she is forcibly separated from everything.
How did this world get so broken?
Her home and her father, but also her ability to trust others and show compassion for them. She will have to learn to trust again to complete her arc.
Yeah, well, the world's broken. Can't trust anyone.
So for Raya, the feminine from which she's separated is her father's belief in the goodness of people.
Don't give up on them.
She tried it out once, and that didn't work.
Very helpful.
But it must be revisited to fix what is broken about their world.
We have a choice. We can tear each other apart, or we can come together.
The second step is gathering masculine allies. Sisu is Raya's first ally and the most influential, especially when it comes to completing her journey. So she has the main role of impacting the masculine for Raya.
Or maybe the world's broken because you don't trust anyone.
But Boone, Baby Noi, Tong, and even Namari are all important allies who help her learn to trust again.
All right, everyone, here's the plan.
Uniquely, a great deal of this movie is just the road of trials for Raya. As they travel around and gather more allies, she is learning to give up her original prejudices.
Tell me what you know about the other land.
Tail. Sneaky mercenaries who fight dirty. Talon. And fighters with even faster hands. Spine. Exceptionally large warriors and their giant axes. Fang. By angry assassins and their even angrier cats.
In the light of empathy and compassion for people from other places. The point of all these adventures is for Raya to give up her jaded outlook for a more understanding one.
Okay, Tong, look, you don't know me and I don't know you.
And it's really important that my friends stay safe, okay? Will you help us?
Which leads to the next step. The fourth step is where the heroine experiences some success, but it is ultimately an illusion. Sisu encourages Raya to trust others.
How could I possibly trust her?
You wouldn't just bring your Ba back. You'd also bring back his dream.
And reminds her of how her father approached the division.
You remind me of him. Hopeful.
So Raya decides to send back the dragon jewelry and try to connect with Namaari on a human level. Because what weight do their arguments have when there is a real live dragon here who can save the world? This scene appears to be successful on two fronts, both on the plot-relevant connection to Namaari and getting the MacGuffin, and also for Raya to demonstrate trust again.
I see you got my gift.
But both are illusions. Namaari has ulterior motives, and Raya is only willing to trust her so far.
Namaari, it doesn't have to be like this.
Which has disastrous consequences. And that leads to the darkest moment for Raya, as she mourns Sisu and all they hoped to accomplish. But she quickly finds a way to give vent to her feelings.
Namaari!
While the world is falling apart around them, Raya begins her descent. This means first exercising her grief and frustration. Fighting Namaari for everything that's happened between them, and how she feels that Namaari is the cause of everything that's gone wrong. Then Namaari points out that she is not solely responsible for Sisu's death.
But you didn't trust her. That's why we're here.
And Raya realizes that her inability to trust kept that meeting from being successful.
You're as much to blame for Sisu's death as I am.
Her father and Sisu would be disappointed, and she resolves to do something they would do instead. The next step is to urgently yearn to reconnect with the feminine. For Raya, that means trying to embody her father's teachings in saving as many people as possible. It doesn't matter that these are residents of Fang.
Fang, protected by angry assassins.
She and her friends help everyone they can find to escape the Droon.
Okay, Took, these are the last of them. Go, we're right behind you.
Raya heals the split with the feminine by including Namaari in her group of allies, by showing that even after everything, she trusts her.
But we have to come together.
And even when everyone else doubts her, Raya holds on to her belief that they can trust her to do the right thing. It's what her father would have done. Sisu was Raya's chief masculine ally, and she makes peace with her by remembering what Sisu said about the last time this all happened. Raya finally decides to trust everyone else to do the right thing, what both her father and Sisu tried to teach her all along.
By doing the one thing Sisu wanted us to do, what my Ba wanted us to do.
And she sacrifices herself to prove that she understands what they were doing. The final step for our heroine is to integrate the masculine and the feminine. Raya does this by learning to trust again, the masculine from Sisu, and believe in the compassion of her fellow humans from her father. Because Namaari lived up to her trust, the world is saved, and Raya is reunited with her father.
Dewdrop.
With Sisu.
Raya.
Sisu.
And with her people.
Welcome to Kumandra.
On the whole, I think Raya goes through the heroine's journey really well. As you can tell, however, it is oddly situated. Most of the movie is set in the more inconsequential parts of her journey, while her intense emotional arc is relegated to the last few scenes. I'm just saying, I would have liked to see her growing trust in their allies as something obviously explored and rewarded. As it stands, her caution towards others is proven right as often as it is proven wrong.
Really? A con, baby?
So while she certainly has an arc, it's not the focus of the film. Still, it is unique for a princess and almost makes up for the lack of songs. I hope future princesses will be allowed such a complex arc and for it to flourish across the whole film.
It's not about her magic, it's about trust.
To wrap this up, how does Raya compare to the other princesses? She has a lot of similarities. An adorable sidekick who gives her someone to talk to, as well as helping her with plot-related shenanigans. That's pretty standard.
That was awesome. Give me some shell.
There is a magical ally who helps her along both a literal journey and an emotional one. Sisu is more hands-on than, say, the fairy godmother, but it's not uncommon for the magical assistants to take the form of a person who provides our heroine with guidance.
You wouldn't just bring your ba back. You'd also bring back his dream.
Also, as is common for princesses, Raya does not have much of a family. She has a single father for a while and loses him. Somewhat unusually, any conflict Raya has with her father results in him being correct.
Don't give up on them.
I think only Tiana's mom had a good lesson for her kid. Usually the parents learn things from the princess, not the other way around.
Welcome to Kumandra.
The next thing used to be very common, but that has changed recently, for better or worse. Raya does not have a love interest in the traditional sense. Moana and Merida did not either, and many Disney films are foregoing this former staple of the story. Merida made a point of it, while Moana works effortlessly without one. The overall story of Raya and the Last Dragon functions better this way, as it emphasizes community over romantic love.
To finally trust each other and fix this!
But I do think that Raya herself might have been better fleshed out if the story had included her falling in love. Would she love someone jaded like her and they learn compassion through each other?
You weren't there when Namari betrayed me. We're sticking with my plan.
Or would she fall for someone already compassionate and learn from them?
That means you can still use it to save the world.
Either way could have strengthened her arc, in my opinion. There's some good character work with how Raya plays off of her two foils, Sisu and Namari.
I actually was looking for Sisu. Oh, and guess what? I found her.
But I think that Raya's character would have been more impactful if either of these had gone further.
You're not the only dragon nerd here.
Especially in light of the biggest difference between this movie and the other princesses. It is not a musical.
If you start singing, I'm gonna throw up.
We don't get a look into Raya's wants or needs because she doesn't sing about them.
I made a mistake. I trusted someone I shouldn't have, and now the world's broken. Really want my ba back.
Imagine that as a song, though. How memorable and effective it would be at conveying Raya's complex emotions of guilt, betrayal, and hope in Sisu. That's why we usually start with an I Want song.
I walked with you once upon a dream.
Just wonder when will my life begin? Look once more, just around the river bend. I'm getting closer and closer every day, and I'm almost there.
So while I generally enjoy modifications to the princess formula, I think removing all songs is detrimental. Most Disney movies use the songs as shorthand for world building and for character interiority. And while both are addressed in this movie, I think removing such an integral aspect of these stories will make Raya and the Last Dragon not be remembered as fondly as many of its predecessors.
How would I even approach Namari?
You just have to take the first step, even before you're ready.
The other change that I have reservations about is that this is not a fairy tale, or even a folk tale. It may result in a happy ending because of a magical MacGuffin, which is an essential aspect of a princess movie, but I think the overall tone and format of the film is rather different from what we expect from the princess series. I don't really know how to explain it, other than that this feels like harder sci-fi fantasy than we usually get.
I saw people lose their minds over a dragon gem. Can you imagine what they do over an actual dragon?
And obviously that's a genre I enjoy, but it doesn't feel as much like a princess movie as a result.
From the looks of it, she was hoarding the gem and became a victim of her own traps.
So I'm not super fond of those differences. But one addition to the Disney movie formula that I tend not to like in general works really well here, which is that we have a twist villain.
Very helpful.
Namaari betrays Raya right away, and their relationship is more complicated than our princesses usually have, and it is reconciled by believing in her, which strengthens the themes of the story and brings home the moral in a really effective way. One traditional aspect of a princess is her innate goodness and belief in others, starting way back with Snow White and going right up to Moana.
Sometimes our strengths lie beneath the surface.
And what Raya brings to the table is that her central conflict is being separated from this important aspect. So her arc is about learning to trust again, learning to be like the other princesses as she develops compassion and believes in her fellow residents of Kumandra.
Yeah, well, the world's broken. You can't trust anyone. It's not about her magic, it's about trust.
This is exciting for two reasons. First, princesses rarely get to have such a strong emotional arc. They don't start out wrong and have to change their ways, and they are not jaded. Female characters in general rarely get to be so jaded and learn to trust again. So Raya is amazingly unique in that regard.
Oh, I see you finally made a new friend.
The second way is that this show's princess tropes can be questioned without breaking the fourth wall. It doesn't have to push the audience out of the story.
You can't marry a man you just met.
If you wear a dress and you have an animal sidekick, you're a princess.
Instead, the movie engages with this idea genuinely, and I honestly find it to be such a relief to get away from the self-referential humor Disney has been using lately.
Cursed? No. Kidnapped or enslaved? No. Are you guys okay? Should I call the police?
So overall, Raya has a lot of classic Disney princess tropes and updates a few, with mixed results. I would be thrilled if future Disney princesses have more complex arcs, if they get to be wrong and learn to be better by the end, or if the relationship to the villain is more complicated and requires something other than just defeating them, which I think is why having a twist villain worked in this case, but doesn't always.
You're as much to blame for Sisu's death as I am.
On the other hand, I really hope they go back to being musicals and fairy tales, while still leaning away from that self-referential humor. However, I have reason to be concerned what lessons they may have taken from Raya and why these are unlikely to be helpful ones. The movie was released in 2021, simultaneously on Disney Plus and in theaters.
This made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move.
I'm going to explore this more in a future video on the MCU, but basically, Disney Plus ruined the cultural capital that Disney previously enjoyed by putting it behind a paywall, and they degraded the already low interest people had in going to the theaters. When this came out, I don't think I heard anyone talk about it unless it was their job to report on every film release, and I haven't heard a word about it since.
6 years of searching, and we end up at a literal shipwreck.
So I worry that the studio takeaway might be that people aren't into princesses anymore, when the reality is just that it was released during unprecedented times.
A dystopian world. A land that's gone to waste.
But also, I just want to point out that it doesn't feel like a princess movie. When I sat down in the theater in 2021, I was really looking forward to some escapist fairy tale instead of a dystopian apocalypse. I mean, I enjoyed it, but not as a princess movie.
How did this world get so broken?
My point is that princess movies may be dying, in the same way the classic Disney villain is basically dead. I think Raya herself slots easily into the mold of princess, but the rest of the movie really doesn't. I don't mean that as a negative. Not being a princess movie doesn't mean it's a bad film. However, I am baffled that this was marketed as a princess movie. If I hadn't been told she was the next princess, I'm not sure I would have even noticed the things she has in common with them.
You're getting a little too big for this, bud.
But it's not a musical. There's no I Want song. There's no fairy tale. It seems like it would be best for an older audience of kids than Disney princess movies usually are. And that's, again, totally fine, but why put this into a box when people will not get what they expect?
We don't know you. You have no credit here. Pay us right now!
The concept of Disney princesses has taken a beating over the last 15 years, questioning these tropes to the point of eradicating them, like the love interest. When given the opportunity, Disney has changed the formula to appeal to modern audiences. Well, what they think modern audiences want, but I think trying to appeal to jaded millennials who don't have genre savvy is maybe not a great business model. At least, not when you make things for kids.
Little one.
Raya is a great female character, but is she a princess? I would say no, except in the most technical sense. And is the movie a fairy tale? Is it a princess movie? Probably not. I like Raya. I think she's a great character. I enjoyed her arc. I think the movie is pretty good, though it is lacking some connective tissue that would help with coherence. But I like plenty of movies and plenty of female characters, and they may have something in common with princesses and princess tropes if you squint, but that doesn't mean that they are princesses or that they are princess movies.
We made all this by making smart decisions, not emotional ones.
So I don't want to alarm anyone, but I am very concerned this series is ending on Raya because she's going to be the last of her kind. For as much discourse as they inspire, I think the princesses are well-constructed female characters in a media landscape where that is rare. Their desires and wants matter to the story. They try to make the world a better place, they go after what they want, and they always get a happy ending. And that's an extraordinary basis for basically the only major franchise aimed at little girls. Along with Frozen, of course. Raya fits into the mold while also pushing beyond it. The animation is gorgeous, and the moral is more applicable to one's daily life than we usually have. The movie is also free of the more self-referential humor other Disney projects have used lately, and I think that's a great improvement. So this can be a good example of putting a new spin on a tried and tested formula. But there are some pretty significant differences in a way that concerns me about the future of princesses as a concept. I mean, I really hope that there will be future princess movies, and I hope they look at Raya's character arc instead of the movie's awkward release to decide what comes next. But I must admit that the changes to it feel like there's already been a tectonic shift, and its lackluster reception may have been the nail in the coffin for creating any new princesses. And that's a real shame.
I really wanted to believe that we could be Kumandra again.
But let's go out on the note of Raya herself, and is she a good role model? She is, absolutely. She is self-reliant, intelligent, compassionate. Though facing more adversity than many of her peers, she figures out how to get by in her world, and she figures out what must be done to save it by the end.
Then let me take the first step.
Uniquely, for a princess, Raya is wrong at the beginning of her story and learns to do better by the end. Her arc is about learning to look beyond her own disillusionment and learn to trust people again. That's a powerful message and a great note on which to complete this series.
To finally trust each other and fix this!
Thank you for listening to me talk about Disney princesses for the last couple years. But we're not done with them. I will be exploring how some of the tropes are used in these films, so look out for those videos. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all the things so you don't miss it. See you then.